Ryan is a singer, a speaker, and a survivor.
Once they had the prayer vigil, the next morning we wake up and the doctor comes in and they say, "Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Neal, we have some good news. Essentially, the scan that we gave you last night, I don't know if the radiologist read it wrong, what have you, but the tumor shrunk between less than 24 hours ago to what it is showing up now. Now it is non-malignant, it is non-cancer causing, and it's so much smaller."
Ryan Neal is our guest today on Faith and Business. Tell us about you and how this faith story started with you a long time ago.
Sure. So I was born and raised outside of Detroit, Michigan, in a suburb called Dearborn Heights. Um, had a really great childhood, two wonderful parents, two older sisters that raised me really well within the faith. Had a pretty quote unquote normal childhood for the first handful of years, went to school, met a bunch of friends. And then around the
That's always a good thing.
Yes.
To go to school and meet friends.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, very, very extroverted and outgoing. And then around the age of 5, we had our first family dog was a collie. Her name was Casey. And, it was my first experience with a dog. It was unbelievable. And one night I noticed her pawing at me in the middle of the night. And she went up to get my mom. And during this time, my mom came down and found me having a seizure.
Ooh.
So
Yeah.
so this was very new. I didn't know that this was necessarily going on. She wasn't a trained dog by any means. She was probably a 6-month-old collie at the time. And so that started raising some questions with my parents, obviously. Was I having more of these that I didn't know of? And so to make a long story short, I started having more. I got connected with the Children's Hospital of Michigan, and we started doing tests, a bunch of MRIs, CAT scans, those things of that nature. And it turns out that I had a brain tumor. Now, initially, they ruled me as potentially being epileptic. So the neurologist that I was seeing at the time, we went in to her office, and as fate would have it, I had a massive seizure right on her office table.
What a blessing.
Yeah. So she could witness exactly what was going on. And her name was Geeta Johns. And at the time, she was my neurologist. And that was kind of the plan of action, to keep her watching over me and things. And, as fate would have it, she took a trip back to her homeland in Africa.
Okay.
She ended up passing away
on
this trip. So we didn't know what to do. And luckily, we were connected to another surgeon in the area. Her name is Alexa Kennedy. And she ended up being, which I found out later, the first African-American female neurosurgeon in the United States history. She went to the University of Michigan, went through a ton of, racial discrimination, even throughout the university, struggles for her to get there. So she became my new neurosurgeon. And through a myriad of different tests, they needed to operate on this brain tumor. So when I was 5, I went in, had a consultation, and they said, they gave my parents an option. They said, at the time, this was in 1998, they said, you can either do a big open head surgery, which was common at the time. The only con of that, even though it would be a safer decision, is I would probably have to have a shunt going forward. I may not be able to go back to school in the normal sense. I may have to be homeschooled. I may have to have an in-home tutor. Or at the time, there was a method called the stereotactic method, where it was much riskier, but my outcome in life would be much better if they were successful. And so here I have this world-renowned surgeon, Alexa Kennedy, who kids would fly from China to be operated on. She was my neurosurgeon. And my parents took a risk and said, let's do it. Let's do the risky method. And so what happened is I had the surgery, and that night, keep in mind, we our faith was very strong, grew up Catholic, and our local priest at the time, his name was Father John Ricardo. He came with a bunch of my friends from school the night after I had the surgery to have a little prayer vigil for me.
Mm-hmm.
Keep in mind, prayer vigils were going on almost every week for me at my school and kind of around the town.
Sure,
So,
especially at a young age like that to have a brain tumor.
yeah. And so that night that they came, I had my surgery in the morning. That evening they came, had a little vigil for me. My parents were given word that the initial tumor that I had was malignant, cancer causing, and could be an issue.
Mm.
And so they were devastated, even after they removed it that morning.
Yeah, I can't begin to imagine what your parents are going through.
Yeah, it was really tough for them. And so that evening, once they had the prayer vigil, the next morning we wake up and the doctor comes in and they say, "Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Neal, we have some good news. Essentially the scan that we gave you last night, I don't know if the radiologist read it wrong, what have you, but the tumor shrunk between less than 24 hours ago to what it is showing up now. Now it is non-malignant, it is non-cancer causing, and it's so much smaller." And that literally happened overnight.
Yeah.
So this happens. I had it removed. And since February 4th of 1998, I haven't had a seizure since.
Wow.
2 years goes by. And keep in mind, I'm having an MRI every 4 months to check up to see if anything's grown.
You're right.
2 years later, they find another one on my pineal gland. The first one was on my frontal parietal lobe.
Okay.
And that one was removed successfully. 2 years later, they find another one that I'm still living with to this day on my pineal gland. And I'm able to go to school. I'm able to participate in sports. I was a 3-sport athlete pretty much all my career throughout school. And 2 years later after that, when I'm 10, I wake up in the morning for 5th grade, immediately feel sick in the morning. I run to the bathroom, get sick, and immediately the hearing in my left ear goes out, which I haven't recovered from yet to this day. So it's just called sudden hearing loss. It happens to people, and there's really no reason why. The nerve was damaged because of the illness. So fast forward, I have a very normal grade school, high school. I go off to college. I attended the University of Michigan State to start, and I finished at the University of Michigan. After college, I started working in various jobs in HR, IT, communications. And all throughout this time, I started becoming a musician.
Okay.
So I started playing guitar at the age of 12 because my grandmother, my dad's side, was a professional piano player. And through her struggles with Alzheimer's and dementia towards her later end of her life,
Right.
she was still able to play all of these piano pieces from when she was 6, 8, 10 years old.
Isn't that amazing?
It really blew my mind. It was such a superpower. And I just thought that was incredible. And I just wanted to make music a part of my life in some way. And so started picking up guitar, just wanted to be a guitar player for a long time. And then years later, I go to college, I start singing and doing open mics of that nature. I think that whole going through the surgery, losing my hearing, trying to make music a career after that, it was all the Holy Spirit talking to me and giving me these struggles early on in a way to say, hey, you're going to overcome these and hopefully inspire people in the future to do so. And so graduate college, do well. I actually moved to Nashville the first time in the tail end of 2014.
Okay.
I had gotten a job in HR. I worked for a year for a company called Brookdale Senior Living and in Brentwood. So I worked there for a year, lived in Nashville for about a year and a half, ended up moving back to Michigan. And during that,
You like the snow, I guess.
I did. Yeah. I love the snow. Exactly. So at that time I moved back. I didn't know, I was about 25 at the time. I didn't know exactly what was my calling in life. So I figured, instead of jumping back into the workforce, I'm going to rent a cabin in the middle of nowhere and just learn how to produce music the proper way, learn how to record, learn how to do all of the things that it takes to get a song from an idea to something that sounds like it could be on the radio. So
Mm-hmm.
recording myself, mixing, mastering, all these different techniques. So Michigan at the time in the summer, that's the hot spot to be there because it's nice, the beaches,
Right.
what have you.
Mm-hmm.
And I stayed there for 3 months, basically learning music production and just doing that
Mm-hmm.
and figuring out what I wanted to do with my life. I moved back to Michigan and continued in the workforce. I worked for an ophthalmologist. My mom manages a clinic, so I started doing eye testing on patients.
Mm-hmm.
Did that for a handful of years. And then back in 2019, I just started getting, more familiar with social media and how to promote yourself as a musician. So I was posting all these videos of me singing and things of that nature. And I got a comment on one of my videos in mid to late 2019 that said, "Hey, love your voice. We think you'd be a good fit for a show coming up next year." And to be honest, I didn't take it too seriously.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was just kind of someone being nice and pulling my leg,
Yeah.
if you will. So I followed up. I looked up this gentleman's name, and he had a bunch of credits for many different major television shows. American Ninja Warrior, The
Mm-hmm.
Bachelor, a few other ABC produced shows. So I followed up, and he's like, "No, it's not a joke. We'd love to have you out. Where's the nearest U.S. city that we could have you audition?" And at the time, I was playing my buddy's wedding in Alpena, Michigan, which is towards the tip of
Yeah,
top of
way
the
up
state.
there.
Yeah. And so I'm like, "Well, when do you need me?" They're like, "Well, what about Monday morning?" And this is Saturday evening.
Yeah.
I'm like, "Well, they're probably not going to come to Detroit. The closest big market would probably be Chicago." So I drove down. I met him in this hotel. I did a quick interview, and they're like, "How would you like to come out to LA for the finals?" And at the point, I didn't even know really what the show was going to be. They said,
Mm-hmm.
"It's going to be single musicians living in a house making music together."
Okay.
And I said, "That sounds great." And so I go to Chicago. They say, "Hey, would you like to come out to LA?" I said, "Sure." A couple months later, they fly me out, do a big round of interviews, stay there for a week. And come to find out, about a month after that, they said, "Hey, you're on the show."
Great.
I'm just like, amazing.
Yeah, I'm in shock. Okay.
Yeah. And all I knew at the time, still, they didn't have a title. They said it's going to be on ABC Monday nights at 8 p.m. I'm
Uh-huh.
like, that sounds like a great time slot.
Sure.
So whatever this is going to help my career in some facet. And so as the story progresses, they say, this is going to be a Bachelor spinoff called Listen to Your Heart,
Mm-hmm.
where there's equal amounts men and women, and you're essentially going to go on music inspired dates. You're going to sing duets with one another to see who advances throughout the rounds,
Mm-hmm.
all the while
Okay.
living in this big mansion outside of Los
Yeah.
Angeles. I was just dumbfounded
Yeah,
at the time.
right.
I didn't know what to think. I was very nervous. But I decided, you know what? When I'm hopefully old one day and I can tell my grandkids that I did something different.
Right.
And it was an incredible experience. I still have great friends to this day, but yeah, we did so many fun things, went on these amazing dates. I had all these amazing experiences, and it was great. But in that, it basically took me from having, a handful of followers to overnight, once that first episode came out, within 2 hours, I went from, let's say, 500 people that follow me to 20,000.
Wow.
And then every single episode, there were 6 episodes,
Mm-hmm.
you gained another 20,000. It was almost like it was
instant stardom.
It really was. And the thing about it was the timing of it just so happened to come out about 3 weeks after COVID started.
Yeah.
So I think April 13th was the first episode and of 2020. And it really changed my life in a lot of ways. It gave me this huge platform that I can promote myself and promote my music and things of that nature. But it also had this effect on me where if you throw somebody in that ring when they're not prepared for all of those eyes and that attention and that constant scrutiny about your life, it can really kind of mess with you mentally and take you away from maybe who you are and what you
Right.
initially set out to be.
But it
Really,
started you on a trajectory.
it did, yes. It gave me a great platform that I'm so thankful for this day. And I had a really good outcome. They call it a good edit on the show.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was seen as one of the good guys, if you will. But
You never want to be the Lone Ranger's bad guy.
no,
You know?
no, definitely not. And so after that happened, I decided to move back to Nashville in 2023, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And just to pursue music more, take it more seriously. And then just through, keeping my faith and keeping, trying to keep a steady head on my shoulders, I was like, what can I do to bridge what I did as a kid in terms of
Mm-hmm.
my survival, not forget where I came from, combine that with my music ability that I developed throughout all these years and advocacy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started reaching out to different brain tumor foundations, and the American Brain Tumor Association gave me a really big shot back in 2024. They had me be the keynote speaker at their national conference. And at the time, I never even considered being a speaker
Mm-hmm.
or doing anything in that lane. And so I was excited. I was very excited. I was nervous. Um, Even though it's my life story, I didn't know how I was going to present
Right. Yeah.
that
You
in a
did.
way
Exactly.
that's
Yeah.
entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
What am I going to talk for 5 minutes and
Yeah.
just not know what to say? So I did a lot of prep work, and I think I did a really good job for my first time. They had me back the year after. And so now that's been a focus of mine to kind of combine storytelling, advocacy, music, and entertainment into one cohesive event for conferences, sales meetings, anything where a big group of people come together and are looking for something more than just rah rah motivation. They're
Right.
looking for
Uh-huh.
something with a little bit more depth, something that they can see themselves within. I do a lot of audience participation and getting people involved because I've been to events that have been the guy on stage talking to people without
Mm-hmm.
any type of reciprocation, with any type of involvement. And it
Mm-hmm.
just feels very sterile. So I wanted to do something different that combines my strengths with something that people can go home with and maybe see a certain power within themselves that maybe they lost.
Ryan is a singer, a speaker, and a survivor, and
Yes,
that's how he touts his business.
correct.
And likewise, you do excellent. So you come out and you play a little bit of music.
I want the engagement to be there. I don't
Mm-hmm.
even say thanks for being here. I'm Ryan. I just go straight into it. And I feel like that hooks people in a way. Music has a way to connect with people that a lot of maybe spoken word
Mm-hmm.
doesn't necessarily. So I try to get them off the bat with the music, go into my story a little bit and how it relates. I do typically a song in the middle where I'll get some audience participation. Maybe I'll
Mm-hmm.
call someone up on stage and have them help me with something, or we'll make a song on the spot and then speak for a little bit after that, and then close with a big audience participation song
Uh-huh.
and just try to leave the room at a little
Bring him
high.
up.
Yeah, so yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Elevate the room a little bit and create a space that people feel welcome and they feel involved in the process. Yeah.
But it's marvelous what you can do today.
Mm.
Now, somebody may be listening out there that would like to have you put a presentation on this positive, influence that you have and with what you've gone through. How would somebody get a hold of you?
So I think the easiest way, my website has everything. It's just www. My full name, which is Ryan, RyanNeal, music.com. So Ryan Neal Music. That's N as in Nancy.
Mm-hmm.
And so that will point you, my email is info@ryannealmusic.com. But
Mm-hmm.
once you click on the site, that shows you, all the music related things, the speaking related things, it kind of breaks my life into two sides, where if you want the music booking and what I do musically, click on the one side. If you want the speaking stuff, my keynote sizzle reel video of me performing at conferences, that's on there. So you can check that out.
That is such an uplifting story to me.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is.
Yeah. And you know, when you're going through it, I'm so glad to have gone through it, I think, at that age, because you're so oblivious to, you know, you're a kid, and I didn't know any different. You know, I was having all these tests done and my head's cut open with this big scar, and I had wrapped, and I went to Catholic
I can't
school.
imagine that now, let alone at 5.
Right. And I went to Catholic school all 12 years. So I was the kid wearing the hat, and everyone else had the uniform. And it teaches you a resiliency, and that I kind of lean on, especially in my faith. And I look back to that child, and I think, you know, if I'm having a bad day now, what could it have been?
Oh,
you know, there's that
absolutely.
survivor guilt that comes from time to time. And I was like, man, it could have been really bad.
And thanks so much for coming in and sharing your story with us today. What a tremendous success story, victory, and a real victory for God as well.
Thank him every day. I wake up and I'm so grateful to be here.